Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope you're having an amazing day today. Let's wait for the tubes to connect themselves all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. Gotta make sure we're coming in loud and clear. And there it is, we can see each other. Let's get to business. Before we zoom in on the details, how about a quick overview, a little preview on what is coming up? We've got updates in New York, the Alvin Bragg prosecution. We got letters, back and forth emails from the judge and Trump's defense and the prosecutor. Remember this guy, Matthew Colangelo. Oh, he's emerging. Yesterday, we read through the submission by Molly Gaston, the highlighter girl in the January 6th case, and she's having to wrap that case up because Trump won the election. They're not happy about that. But now we're in New York, and you can see that they were supposed to have a decision from Judge Mercan today. They did not get one. There was a back and forth from everybody involved, and we'll see exactly what is happening there. Then we'll see what Fox News was saying about it because Turley and others were discussing it. And so that will be a quick segment. We'll just see what's happening there in New York. Then we'll turn our attention to Jack Smith once again because the great state of Texas is now suing Jack Smith. We're happy to see this. They want an injunction because you remember the last time that we had investigations into Robert Mueller. Remember how anytime you want to go investigate one of these government agencies, like the Secret Service on January 6th, like the Secret Service when Trump gets shot in the head, like Robert Mueller when he was investigating Trump, what do? They delete the evidence. They delete the text messages and all their files. We made the joke. Shredders go brr, just like the money printer goes brr when Jerome Powell gets behind it. But it's just shredding. And Texas is saying, enough, all right? Stop deleting your stuff like with a cloth, all right? We're not happy about it. So we'll go through that. We've got conversations about Christopher Wray and questions about whether or not he is going to be forced to leave or whether he is going to resign. We, of course, will see. All that is coming up soon. We've also got clips from this guy and this gal, you know, Karine Jean-Pierre. She's back in the White House. Haven't heard from her in a little bit. And now she gets asked about Kamala and Biden's first lunch together. Apparently they were back in Washington sharing a sandwich or something. And then Joe Biden was in the White House yelling at reporters once again. So from there, we're going to see what's going on in the J6 cases because you remember Steve Baker, who's done some amazing reporting on the January 6th stuff, represented by William Shipley. You know him as Shipwrecked Crew on X. They filed a motion to continue their case in the January 6th case. And they're not one of the only J6 defendants that we've seen and heard from here. We also have our friend Free State Will Alexander Pope, who's also submitting a motion to continue the trial date. Trump won. Trump has already indicated that he's going to be pardoning or commuting a lot of these sentences. So why would the DOJ rush these things to trial when Trump's going to be in office in just a few months? So how about we get a continuance? That makes sense, right? Wrong. Our corrupt Justice Department is going to continue to try to ram these things through. And we'll read through their response in the Baker case, which I'm sure they'll be filing in other cases as well. So we'll get up to speed on the J6 stuff. And then we've got a warning from Mark Paoletta. Says, listen, I'm going to be involved in the transition team, and you better be prepared because repercussions are coming your direction, DOJ corrupt bureaucrats. And he was also on with Fox explaining more on that. So we'll talk about that. Then we've got in our final segment, we've got Elon Musk. Did you know Elon rigged the election? That's what some left-wing conspiracy theorists, isn't that fun? Left-wing conspiracy theorists. Oh man, they called it right-wing conspiracy theorists for all this time. Now it's going to them. They say that Elon Musk beamed the STARLINK satellites right into Jenna Griswold's brain and apparently short-circuited what was left of her logical faculties. And I don't know how it worked, but we'll read through the story because a bunch of people on X are continuing to say Elon rigged it. This guy, John Pavlovitz, got like 400,000 followers on X, wrote a bunch of stuff. Everybody follows him, likes him, millions of views. Okay. He's saying we need a recount because there were some undervotes. And we're asking ourselves the same question, right? This is actually an interesting situation because the Democrats are saying, wait. In Arizona, are you kidding me? Ruben Gallego won in Arizona, but Kamala Harris didn't win. A Democrat Senate candidate beat Kari Lake, but Trump somehow won. How did Ruben Gallego get more votes than Kamala Harris did? Maybe it's rigged, is what they're saying. And Kamala got the same number of votes as Gallego, so there should be an actual increase. We're wondering the same thing from the opposite perspective. We're saying, wait a minute. All those people voted for Trump and they didn't vote for Kari Lake? That feels weird. So we're into it. Yeah, our election systems are extremely problematic. And we've seen that in court filings here. It's not me saying that. You can read it from Judge Amy Totenberg in Georgia. Said it's a disaster there. And they say they fixed it. We know they didn't. So, all right. So we'll go through that. John Pavlovitz saying that there's a big problem. If you Google, X, Elon, don't ban me. If you just type into the search, Elon recount STARLINK, you're going to see there's a bunch of stuff that's on there. So we'll go through that. All these different X posts saying Elon hacked the tubes with his STARLINK. So bunch of stuff coming up, my friends. Really glad that you're here and with us. I hope your week is unfolding beautifully. You're accomplishing all the things you set your mind to, and you've got plans for Taco Tuesday. Or maybe you've already indulged. I hope so. I think that's our plan tonight too. So before we get into it, you know what we got to talk about? Getting prepared and getting our meds, because let's face it, right? We've got a situation where there are new respiratory illnesses spreading faster than ever. Flus, other threats, man-made pandemics are being contemplated, whether it's natural, whatever. It is bedlam out there. And so as we saw over the past 4 years, we can't count on the government to have our backs when these situations emerge. That's why the Wellness Company exists, and they've got a contagion emergency medical kit that's an absolute necessity. It's packed with critical medications like you see here, Z-Pak, budesonide, nebulizers. And so picture this, no more waiting in line at pharmacies, dealing with woke doctors or any of that nonsense. Just take a few clicks, get the guidebook, get the kit. It's got instructions so you know how to use these medications effectively. And now in these uncertain times, we got to be proactive. So head on over to twc.health/Robert, twc.health/Robert. You'll save $30 off and you'll get free shipping and you'll be prepared. How cool is that? So check it out. And thanks to our friends at the Wellness Company for sponsoring today's episode. All right, now let's get into the business on the day, my friends, because we've got some business in New York. Judge Merchan in New York, the judge presiding over the Alvin Bragg prosecution that resulted in what you continually hear, 34 felony convictions over and over and over again, even though Trump was never sentenced in this case. Trump went and voted on election day, remember that? So how, if he's a convicted felon, is he voting? Because he's not a convicted felon. The jury found him guilty, but he has not been sentenced. There are two components to this. You have a guilty verdict. The judge will then consider the verdict, hear from all the parties to determine what the sentence should be, execute the sentence, and then all the things happen. Then you start to show up on the federal databases and the crime reports, and you're a convicted felon, and you stop voting, and your prohibition from firearms comes into play. All of that. But that has not happened yet. And today, the date that this came out and was published for all of us to see, we now know that the judge is punting once again on the sentencing, the half of the finality of this case that's critical to wrap it up. Right now, it's still being processed. It's still pending. And so let's see what was happening here. So internal emails from the courts, back and forth from the parties. And here is what we have now. From Matthew Colangelo, and we know who he is. He was the former DOJ official, number 3 over there, who left the Biden DOJ and was previously under Eric Holder, who's been a lifer at the DOJ, but left number 3 position to go over and prosecute Trump with the Bragg cabal. We saw it. He writes, Sunday, November 10th, just a few days ago, now made public. Says, Dear Judge Merchan, We're writing to advise the court that on Friday, President Trump, you should call him President-elect, punks, asked the people, that's us, the people with a capital. You see how they do this? They're so, the defendant, lowercase d, loser, not important, we the people. You're government bureaucrat prosecutor hacks, all right? You don't represent us. To agree to a stay of these proceedings. So Trump and the government agree. We're going to postpone these proceedings in order to provide time to review and consider a number of arguments based on the impact on this proceeding from the results of the presidential election. Oh, man, that must have been painful for Matthew Colangelo to write. What happened? The results, what happened? Let's see. Says Trump's president-elect defendant, and his forthcoming certification as president-elect on January 6th is coming soon. Oh, that stinks for you guys. And his inauguration on January 20th, 2025, coming soon thereafter. Oh. Now, in the alternative, Trump president-elect defendant represented that they intend to file a motion on Monday, November 11th, which was yesterday, to stay all proceedings before this court. So Trump's people came to the government and said, hey, we're going to file this unless you agree that we can postpone this because obviously Trump won, Matthew. So they say the people, aka Bragg's hacks, they agree that these are unprecedented circumstances. They're not really, all right? We knew the election was coming. This isn't like a shock. This has never happened before. Where'd this come from? Well, he's been running for 2 years. Said he was going to run for 4 years ago. So it's not actually unprecedented. We knew the trial was coming. We told you guys to postpone this. We told you to let us appeal it on immunity issues. You totally ignored all that, did the opposite of what Judge Chutkan did, as terrible as she is. She at least went through the proper procedures, let her case go to a stay, and then sent it up on the courts to the Supreme Court. But Merchan didn't do any of that. In fact, he held a trial where he allowed a ton of immune evidence to be presented to the jury, thereby wrecking the case because that was immune conduct. Should have never made it. So it's not unprecedented at all. We suspected Trump was going to win. This entire time, the polls said Trump was going to win. Don't act shocked, Matthew. This is why we said to postpone it until after the election. Or how about not to prosecute rigged political cases in the first place? You can't create the circumstances and then when the probable outcome appears, sit there like a baby and cry unprecedented, like you've never seen this before. And that the arguments raised by defense counsel in the correspondence to the people on Friday require careful consideration to ensure any further steps in this proceeding appropriately balance the competing interests of one, a jury verdict of guilt following trial that has a presumption of regularity that was anything but regular, and two, the office of the president. So we have to consider a bunch of stuff. And so accordingly, Bragg's hacks and Matthew Colangelo, Biden-Harris prosecutor, respectfully request that the court adjourn the upcoming scheduled dates, which was on the 12th, which is today, to afford the people time to assess these recent developments, which is Trump's victory. Recent developments. And set November 19th as the deadline, which was the sentencing date, for people to advise the court regarding our view of appropriate steps going forward. So the sentencing date was supposed to be next week, 1 week from today, and that sounds like it's vacated. We're going to see what the judge says here in a second. But if they're taking the 12th and moving it to the 19th, that means the 19th presumably is not going to be a sentencing date because Trump will not be prepared to be sentenced at that time because we're waiting for the decision on sentencing. So the government hacks have consulted with the defense counsel, American heroes, who consent to this request that will postpone the 12th to the 19th. Now here is what Trump's team said in response. They write, from Emil Bove, Sunday, 9:36 a.m., to Matthew Colangelo, Honorable Juan Merchan, and others. Dear Judge, President Trump joins Alvin Bragg's request to stay the existing scheduled dates, including the dates for a decision on the pending presidential immunity motion and sentencing, right? Because Trump said, well, your case is totally destroyed because you used illegal evidence. So there's no way that this conviction can stand. Saying there are strong reasons for their requested stay and eventual dismissal of the case in the interest of justice. Under the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Trump versus United States and the Presidential Transition Act of 1963. So it looks like three different bases. Okay, one, they say this case is ultimately going to be dismissed. Two, there's immunity decisions. And three, we're transitioning right now. So there are three things that we're going to come back on, and we're briefing right now. So we're okay with a postponement, a continuance. Saying Jack Smith's office, he got the same thing. He was in Judge Chutkan's courtroom, and he asked her to stay and vacate the upcoming proceedings. And Judge Chutkan granted them the same stay relief in D.C. That's because Jack Smith is going to be considering dismissing both of their prosecutions. Now let's pause on this. Jack Smith is a federal prosecutor who works for the DOJ as the so-called special counsel, totally illegitimately appointed, and Trump has cover to get rid of him instantly. Walks right in, you're fired. Why? Well, because a federal judge has already said he's illegitimate. Judge Cannon already dismissed the case. He was illegally appointed. He stole tens of millions of dollars from the public treasury and has no basis to be there. So can get rid of him instantaneously on the January 6th case, and I think face no political fallout at all, and he should do it. That would result in the termination of the prosecutions. Right now, Jack Smith has a better interest from his perspective, not to be in the middle of typing something up and you're fired. What? I am. Don't touch anything. Get out. Don't touch it. Right? Stand up right now. Stand up, hands up. Get out. Otherwise, what he's going to be doing, what he'd prefer to do is right now, wrap everything up. Shred, 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 shred. And in the next segment, we're going to hear from Ken Paxton in Texas, who's suing Jack Smith so that Jack Smith doesn't delete his evidence like the Secret Service did, like Hillary Clinton did, like they do every time they're facing scrutiny, like the J6 committee did. It's never ending. They're dishonest. So then Jack right now would prefer to voluntarily dismiss the case so he can write his report and put a bow on it. But that is a different consideration than the state prosecutors because Trump doesn't have the same authority to come in there and unilaterally fire Alvin Bragg, who is the prosecutor in this case. Even though Matthew Colangelo left the DOJ, this is now a state prosecution. So Trump doesn't have that same power. So a stay here has more risk to it because what if they just stay it for the 4 years that Trump is the president? As we know, the president is basically immune from both civil and criminal prosecutions during that time, but they can restart themselves after the presidency is over. So we don't want to risk a situation where Trump exits the presidency and they reinstate these cases. That is less of a concern on the federal cases because Trump has finality there. He can just dump them. So a stay has some risk. Let's see where this goes. The stay and dismissal, so they're not just shooting for a stay. So again, backing up to this Presidential Transition Act. Well, he's transitioning, so you can't prosecute him in the middle of that. He's got duties and obligations there. So the non-prosecution should start now, but the case should ultimately be dismissed anyways because of immunity and because in the interest of justice, just to be clear. They're not only saying pause, they're saying also dismiss. Are necessary to avoid unconstitutional impediments to Trump's ability to govern, which is the broader argument that we made to Bragg on Friday in our emails to him. We are prepared to make a submission regarding each of those authorities in support of Bragg's stay request by noon. In other words, Judge, if you need more info from us, we'll give it to you. If that would assist the court in evaluating the importance of a complete stay on everything while Bragg's office decides their position regarding the dismissal that is warranted here. So they're working for the same outcome with Bragg's office. But as I said, Bragg is not a federal prosecutor. So he is not under the same pressure as Jack Smith is, because Trump can just nuke Jack Smith instantly, politically. But here is what the court said in response. From Stephen Suvosky, probably court clerk, says, all right, Mr. Colangelo, government hack, and Mr. Bove, Trump's defense attorney, the court is in receipt of your emails. Now, the joint application, since you guys agree on this, for a stay, for a pause of all the current deadlines, including the decision on Trump's other motion until November 19th, is granted. Now, as per the government's request, the people are to file with this court off calendar your view of the appropriate steps going forward. Please make such filing no later than 10 a.m. on November 19th. So also, please have a copy of all this correspondence, including Mr. Bove's email, on the court docket first thing on Tuesday. And boom, there it is. We have it. So this is the judge allowing the continuance to this date, which means Trump is not going to be sentenced on that date because that is the date to determine if we're going to have sentencing. So sentencing is not on the calendar anymore. And they didn't reset a sentencing date, right? So they didn't just postpone the 12th to the 19th and the 19th to the 20th, whatever the next, whatever the next week is. They're not doing that. They're just consolidating that on the 19th. All right. So that is curious. We'll see what comes back on the 19th. Of course, we're going to be continuing to cover this case in depth until it is dismissed, as it should be. Thanks for subscribing as we do. This is some analysis from Fox News, our friend Jonathan Turley and others. This is what they said in response to this.
What truly could be the goal here? What does this accomplish? And really, can you subvert the people's will? Or do you think they'll push it off till he's 83 and out of office?
Or the judge could come back and sentence him right now. Just say, actually, we are going to hold sentencing. We're going to come back on the 19th. I am going to find you, we're going to come back in 1 week. So prepare your sentencing memos and we'll see you then. Then, of course, Trump would appeal that. Emergency stays. SCOTUS might get involved. Who knows? But that's one possibility.
Well, a couple of years ago, I said this election would be the largest jury decision in history, and it was. They rendered a verdict, and they rejected lawfare. And the Manhattan case is really one of the most prominent examples of lawfare. It was a ridiculous case. It should not have been brought. Now, the Trump team did succeed in getting this delay. What they don't want is an indefinite status. They don't want this just to be lingering. They want to be able to get to a position where they can appeal. Keep in mind, they've never been able to get a full review of what happened at the trial.
No, they haven't. They've appealed multiple times, and the upper level courts deny their permission to take it up.
This trial is riddled with reversible error, in my view. I was shocked in that courtroom watching some of these rulings, which made no sense to me. So they will be arguing in the next week that it's time for the judge to recognize reality. And
yeah, there were gag orders against Trump. Stormy Daniels was talking about all sorts of totally inappropriate things. There's a rule that if it's more prejudicial than it is probative, if it's more harmful than it is helpful, you don't allow that stuff to come in. Trump's team was objecting. The judge said, shut up with your objections. Knock it off. They said, fine, we won't object anymore. Then Stormy Daniels starts talking about getting attacked by Trump or whatever she was saying. And the judge is like, well, why aren't you objecting? They're like, you just told us, Judge, not to. He's like, well, okay. So it was a disaster.
To dismiss this case, that would go against his pattern of ruling in the past.
So, Leo, I want to ask you about the certain cases that Trump faced in recent months and why this one in particular, and Jonathan just laid out the importance of it, and certainly politically, but why this one in particular they couldn't do something with along the way. And I know that the U.S. Supreme Court weighed in, but we saw cases falling apart. What makes this one so stubborn?
The state case. This is the state case where they had already in process a trial going on, and the conviction or the sentencing that is going to take place, but the conviction of 34 charges against Trump. And what's happening right now, Harris, is you have a judge acting like a politician instead of a judge. I mean, let's look at what is actually happening here. Official acts by the president are inadmissible per se. That is justification for dismissal. No one on this panel can sit here and tell anyone the impact of that inadmissible evidence on the jury. The judge should dismiss this case, but he won't. He's acting as a politician today instead of a judge. And what the Trump team has to do is insist that this case is resolved, taking no type of substitution like a pardon or some type of dismissal. The President Trump team needs to get a complete vindication because he's innocent of the charge. I still don't know what the underlying charge is.
Well, it's falsifying business records, which is fake. It's not even a real charge. That's why you don't know what it is, because nobody knows what it is. It's not possible to know because the judge took something, then bootstrapped a misdemeanor onto it, and then used that to turn it into a felony for something that is not even applicable to the conduct in this case. It was insane. And the jury could pick whatever they wanted. It was pick a crime, any crime, choose your card, any card, doesn't matter, because they didn't even have to have unanimity onto the object offense. It was like we were living in crazy town. So we're coming back on this. We'll see what the judge does. It will be here on the 19th. Thanks for subscribing and inviting one of your best friends over here to join us, because we'll be seeing where this case wraps up back then at that time. All right, so let's move forward, because we've got to talk about Jack Smith now and his stubbornness. And I had to cue this document up. My apologies, because it did not have our red pen and it was not appropriately situated. Of course, my fault. But we're ready now. And so we've got the documents ready to go. Jack Smith, the Trump prosecutor who was overseeing the January 6th case and the classified documents case, now getting sued by Texas so that Jack Smith and his office don't delete their files. Here's what it looks like out of the Attorney General's office, Ken Paxton from Texas. We've got two items here. One is the Freedom of Information Act request going to Jack Smith's office. The other is the lawsuit itself demanding an injunction so that Jack Smith doesn't delete the audio recordings or any other evidence from his office. And we hope that the court in Texas grants this injunction and that Jack Smith preserves those records, buddy boy, because Texas is coming. So here you can see Ken Paxton sent this one out. He says, all right, hey, FOIA people over at the DOJ, you guys who take the record requests, guess what? We've got a record request for Special Prosecutor * illegitimate, not even a real boy, Jack Smith. They say, all right, guess what? Hello, this letter now serves as an official FOIA request by the state of Texas. Says Texas's requests are set forth below. Should any record or portion of these records be claimed as exempt, then a sufficient amount of information must be provided in response to the request explaining why you're not giving these items to us. Now, let's go through the lawsuit before we come back to the specifics, because this is a fun one. The state of Texas versus Merrick Garland, the outgoing attorney general, sued with a complaint for a temporary restraining order against Jack and the DOJ, declaratory relief, and an injunction. All juicy stuff. Here's what Texas says. All right, DOJ, they're telling this to the court in the Northern District of Texas. They say the DOJ and their history, Your Honor, with special counsels is regrettably riddled with attempts to avoid transparency. We're not going to let that happen here. Remember this? Special counsel Robert Mueller's team notoriously wiped their phones, and Attorney General Merrick Garland preferred to incur a congressional contempt citation before he would even consider turning over the audio recordings from Robert Hur's investigation. Cover up and cover up. Mueller nuked their evidence. Biden DOJ covers up for Joe. On November 8th, Texas submitted a FOIA request that we saw a preview of. Now, there is no doubt that many of Jack Smith's records are subject to release under FOIA. And moreover, after the re-election of President Trump, it is clear that both Jack Smith's office and his prosecution of President Trump will soon come to an end. And accordingly, most of the ordinary exemptions that his office might seek to resist FOIA, could interfere with our law enforcement proceedings, and it's an ongoing investigation, ongoing prosecution. Not anymore. Attorney General Paxton, however, fears that many releasable records that Jack has, including those that he sought, will never see daylight. Now, that is not because the DOJ has any legal reason to withhold them. Rather, Attorney General Paxton has a well-founded belief, as set forth herein, that defendants will simply destroy records. That is how they and or their predecessors have operated in the recent past. And Jack Smith's team has conducted itself in multiple ways that suggest it cannot be blindly trusted to preserve and eventually produce all of its records. And moreover, this is Texas speaking, Jack Smith's team has ample incentives to reduce the maximum extent possible the odds that their records ever become public. After all, it has been thoroughly reported that persons close to the incoming president, they believe that Jack Smith's team has broken the law. Everybody does. Now, regardless of whether, on our side, regardless of whether that is true, it provides Jack Smith's team with an incentive to ensure that records of their work remain concealed. So they're panicking because the incoming administration thinks they broke the law. So Texas says, in order to ensure that he will be able to vindicate his rights under FOIA, Ken Paxton is now seeking an order from this court, ordering Jack Smith to preserve all of his records, or at least all the records that we've requested. Courts have repeatedly granted other orders like this. And this is urgent because the time for Paxton to sue on this does not lapse until December 10th. So we have to file this now. Normally, we have to file after they deny our request, but we have no time for that. We need an order right now to ensure that he preserves his records because he's got a full month to start shredding things. While relief is not yet available under the law, it's also well settled that we can also file a claim against a federal official when they exceed their statutory authority. And by the way, you will eventually have jurisdiction over this litigation. And so because that will ultimately come into your jurisdiction, you should enter a preservation order and force Jack Smith to keep his records. We know who Ken Paxton is. We know who Merrick Garland is. We know the court has jurisdiction. And now we get into the details. On November 5th, Trump won the election to be the next president of the United States. On November 8th, and that was a great day, man. Phoo-wee. Just pausing to remember. On November 8th, Special Counsel Jack Smith filed a motion in one of his criminal prosecutions against the president that appears to indicate that the prosecution will soon end, says Texas. Namely, Jack Smith moved to vacate the briefing schedule in the J6 case to determine the appropriate course going forward with the Department of Justice policy. So they're going to end their case. Oh, great. So they can't claim privilege anymore over other documents. They say DOJ policy makes plain that the case cannot proceed. It's repeatedly concluded that criminal prosecution of a sitting president is like dividing by zero. You can't do it in our system because the president is the executive branch. Accordingly, on November 8th, Paxton submitted a FOIA request. They want a lot of materials, including all communications that Jack Smith had with a range of outside parties, as well as other information about cell phones that were assigned to Smith's team. Let's go back to the FOIA requests and see what they're demanding. All communications from any or current former member of Jack's office to any New York State governmental office. Yes, that's incredible. Collusion. Was the DOJ communicating with Tish James at the AG's office? Oh, that's great. Were they communicating with the executive branch, Hochul's office, or Cuomo's office? Were they communicating with the District Attorney of New York, Alvin Bragg's office? Let us know. That covers New York. Guess who's next? Fannyland. Did you send any communications from Jack's office to FultonDA.org? To Fannie and Nathan, who were indicting each other multiple times a day or week? All communications as well to current or former members of any congressional office. People in the House of Representatives like Nancy Pelosi. People in the Senate like Chuck Schumer or any of their aides. We also want to know if you were talking to anybody in Texas, the Texas DPS, Texas County, Texas House, Texas Senate. We want documents that memorialize any of your notes, anything from your attorney files that shows your reasoning to request a trial against Trump, and they call President-elect Trump, its proper title, to start in January of 2024. Why did you want to schedule that when he was running for office? We want your internal messages. If you're on Slack, let us know. Communications with actors who are not employed in the office as well. Any third parties, anybody at all, and all documents sufficient to show all mobile numbers and corresponding asset tag numbers that were assigned to Jack's office. Signed, Ken Paxton, Texas Attorney General. Let's go. All right, so that was submitted. Now let's go back to the lawsuit. It says by law, they have until December 10th to respond to that request. Now that time period, however, gives us an unduly long, inequitable period from which they can create significant obstructions they're already deleting. They're like, is there a way to select all on these things? Hey, how do I select all? They're like, just throw it in the fire. All right. Now, multiple recent episodes within the DOJ, particularly as it pertains to its special counsels, demonstrates that such obstructions would likely occur. For example, remember Robert Mueller? They appear to have, quote, deleted federal records that could have been key to understanding their decision-making process. Senator Chuck Grassley released that. DOJ FOIA release. Members of the Mueller team reportedly wiped their phones as watchdogs sought records. Isn't that nice? Multiple officials on Mueller's team claim to have, quote, used the wrong password too many times. If you enter that password again, it's going to delete everything. You promise? Perfect. On their phone, such that the phone would automatically wipe the data. Perfect. No one on Mueller's team was held accountable in any meaningful way. They destroyed all their records because they're cover-up criminals. The Mueller's team and their record destruction is regrettable for many reasons, one of which is that it sent a message to future special counsel teams that they too could destroy any records that they wanted without any repercussions. Now, the current DOJ operating under Defendant Merrick Garland, oh, that has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Defendant Merrick Garland. Woo, I like it. Says, has likewise demonstrated that it is willing to go to extreme lengths to resist transparency in the special counsel investigations. For example, while the DOJ produced a transcript of Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur, it refused to produce the audio recording of that interview. At first, the DOJ failed to claim any privilege over that recording. It just said, well, it's going to be cumulative. You already have the transcripts, so you don't need the audio. You already have it. It also posited that Biden has a privacy interest in the sound of his voice, which was dilapidated. Then, mere hours before the commencement of a congressional meeting to hold Garland in contempt, Garland transmitted to Congress a letter wherein Biden asserted executive privilege over the audio recording, which was strange because they released the transcript. So there's no privilege over the information because you just waived it. That invocation of executive privilege appears by every indication to be frivolous, given that the transcript had already been released. Yeah, the conversation, the executive privilege that was claimed doesn't apply because it's not confidential anymore. Then on June 12th, the House of Representatives found Merrick Garland in contempt. Nothing has happened, obviously. The DOJ, which Garland runs, refused to prosecute Merrick Garland. So if Congress issues a subpoena and you don't show up and your name is Steve Bannon or Peter Navarro, you know what they'll do? Well, they'll find you in contempt and the DOJ will prosecute you if it's Liz Cheney's committee doing it and Nancy Pelosi's in charge. But if it's Congress who does the same thing to the Department of Justice Attorney General, he can decide not to prosecute himself because There are two systems of justice here, one for the Democrats, one for the rest of us. Moreover, Jack Smith has treated records in a way that suggests a similar anything goes application of the law. In his prosecution of Trump over the classified records case, his team at one point told the court that with only, quote, one exception, they said, oh, only one exception, the boxes of documents that were seized from Trump's residence when they raided his house were in their original intact form as seized. Remember that? They said the evidence had not been perverted. It was exactly as they seized it, which is what you would imagine. You don't want cops in there messing around with the evidence because then it's not your evidence anymore. Now it's theirs. They've just changed everything. You had nothing to do with it. It's theirs now. But he was later forced to admit, there are some boxes where the order of the items within the box are not the same as in the associated scans. So somebody manipulated the evidence, which is very important. So you can see chronology of the boxes. Where was stuff located? What stuff was in there? What stuff was out? And it was all shifted around. Wonder why that happened. Because he had no plausible justification for this inconsistency, he said, yeah, we manipulated the evidence totally. It's like opening up a blood vial and like manipulating it. You put the blood vial, it's all sealed, crimped, open it up, look at it, put it, seal it back up. There it is. It's the same as it was before. Would you eat your DoorDash if somebody brought it to you and moved everything around, opened it up, put the potatoes over here, move that over here, move that over there? No, it's tainted. It's bad. You have to throw it out. He conceded to the court that what he first told the court was inconsistent with what he later acknowledged was true. Some people might call that a lie. He's a prosecutor, so they just call it an inconsistency. It's not. It's a lie. And he later pivoted to saying that it was nigh impossible to maintain the exact order of all the documents. Nigh impossible to move boxes without moving everything around, which is ridiculous. Now, in combination of Smith's recklessness with documents and his willingness to resort to implausible legal arguments raises a significant likelihood, since he's already wrecked the evidence, that he's going to lose or destroy the documents that are already at issue. And Jack's counsel and his team, they also have a strong incentive to do whatever he can to prevent transparency, given that persons close to President Trump who are incoming have accused Jack Smith's team of legal violations in the conduct of its investigation and prosecution of Trump. And so now we've got claims. We can file something against a public official when they're acting without any authority whatsoever. Jack can't delete anything. He lacks authority to delete any records at issue here. First, the preservation of agency records is a fundamental process step before they can deliver to a FOIA. We've requested a FOIA, which means he has to preserve them. If they fail to preserve their records properly, the district court can compel the agency to promptly do that. That's what we're asking. And second, the Federal Records Act also governs the creation of these materials. The content from our FOIA request, which are demanding records from Jack's office, are federal records, and we're demanding those. Under this act, federal records may not be disposed of or destroyed without authorization from NARA, the National Archives. Due to the importance of maintaining these records, there's a procedure here, and so they don't have the authority to delete these things. We also are bringing a claim under the All Writs Act, and we're asking for the following in summation. 1, Texas court, please restrain and permanently enjoin Jack Smith from destroying any records that he has in his possessions. No bleach bit, no like with a cloth, no Secret Service deleted text messages on J6, no deleted audio recordings or radio transmissions from the Butler assassination attempt. Keep it. Don't be like them. Temporarily also restrain and permanently enjoin Jack Smith from destroying any records that we ask for. Declare that he has no authority to destroy any records in his possession. Declare that Jack Smith and the DOJ have no authority to destroy any of their records, so Jack's office or the DOJ, and grant our state, Texas, any other items that you deem to be appropriate in the interest of justice. Signed by Ken Paxton, Ryan S. Bach, Associate Deputy Attorney for Ken Paxton out of the Attorney General's office in the great state of Texas, going after Jack Smith, which is a great start. We hope the court finds in their favor and Jack Smith is required to not delete anything. We know that they're shredding right now. Unplug the shredders. Unplug the shredders. Now, the DOJ is not the only entity that is coming under scrutiny. FBI Director Christopher Wray is preparing for a possible forced exit under Trump. Oh, isn't that a shame? One person under consideration is Kash Patel, who's also being considered to lead the CIA, although I think we have some breaking news that John Ratcliffe is going to run the CIA, which is an interesting pick. He seems like a sharp dude. Says FBI Director Christopher Wray and Donald Trump's team are planning for the possibility that Trump is going to nuke Wray out of the FBI. One person under consideration is Kash Patel. Wray, whom Trump appointed to a 10-year term, is leading the FBI, and all sources are speaking on anonymity so they don't get outed. Replacing might not mean firing. Wray could resign if he was told Trump wants him gone. And the Trump campaign is talking about cleaning house, and we hope that they do. So here is one problem with the federal bureaucracy. This guy was on with CNN explaining that apparently they just take files away from the president. It's on his desk. Somebody comes in and steals it, which I think is theft and should be prosecuted accordingly. I hope this guy outs whoever those people were.
Is it Donald Trump exclusively that you're concerned about?
No, actually, in many ways, it's more about the people who will be among him. In the first administration, and I represented quite a number of them who were in the White House with Donald Trump, there were people, for example, who would take documents off his desk so that he wouldn't sign them, and he would forget about it. That we saw in the Nixon administration as well, in fact. We're concerned this time around with the extremists, some of them who will be around him, that they will bring the documents to the president to sign. I mean, we've got people like Steve Bannon and others who have made it very clear where they stand on seeking political retribution against their perceived enemies.
It's not political retribution, it's justice. The people who are pulling documents off the president's desk are criminals. That is interference and fraud with the operation of government. They should be prosecuted, and he should be investigated and called in to figure out who is doing that. How can that happen in the White House? That is undermining American, the government. That's treasonous.
Using what is called lawfare, which they have been doing for the last 4 years when he's been out of office, in suing perceived enemies.
All right, well, if they're criminals, then they are enemies of the people. If they're interfering with Trump's administration in opposition to his wishes, then they are acting outside of the law, and they should be investigated and prosecuted accordingly. So as the administration that is currently in power continues to scramble, the DOJ's wondering what the hell's happening to them. Christopher Wray's having a meltdown. We read yesterday here on the show that the DOJ was terrified. Oh, gosh, it sounds awesome. Now, the question is, what about Biden and Kamala? They had a lunch today. Let's see how it went. Peter Ducey had some questions for Karine on it.
House briefing room, let's listen in.
Transition of power.
President Biden says that he's not going to pardon his son, Hunter. Is he going to ask Donald Trump to do that?
I don't have anything else to share about that. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole on this. I've been very clear. The president's been very clear when we've been asked this question.
And we know that at some point during the last Trump transition, then President Obama warned Trump that the biggest threat to the U.S. at the time was North Korea. Is President Biden going to run through what he sees the biggest threats to the country are with Donald Trump?
I am not going to get into a specific agenda of what they're going to discuss. And this is very much to the question that I got from MJ. What does the president what's the message he wants to send tomorrow? And it is to the American people. The importance of keeping the norms, the importance of having a transition that is going to be efficient. This is what the American people
All right, only like
deserve.
a few more months of her,
And
man.
that's
Just a
the
couple more
message.
months.
And I think when you all come into the Oval Office tomorrow, you do the pool spray, you capture that moment. That is an important message to send to the American people. That's what the president cares about. I'm not going to get into details about any conversation or agenda.
And we know that today, a week after the election, President Biden and Vice President Harris had a private lunch. How awkward was that?
I don't even understand. Why would it be awkward?
Because
Why would it
the president
be awkward?
got squeezed
Why
out for
would
her,
you-
and then she kept him at arm's length, and then she lost,
Well,
and now she's back.
why would you characterize it as awkward? They have regular lunches. They meet and talk regularly. Why would
So
you
there's
call it
no
awkward?
weirdness about the way that things have unfolded since
Did you
July
see them?
21st.
Did you see them together yesterday as well when they honored our veterans and were together during the day, making sure that we didn't forget the brave men and women that fought for this country? Did you see them together yesterday?
Yeah, we did.
Did you see the show of force together?
Show of force. They were limping across
I'm not even going to
the
take the premise of this
concrete.
question. What I will say is
You just did engage the premise of the question, Karine, for about 2 minutes.
president and the vice president had lunch today. They've had lunch many times. They have they communicate with each other regularly. They had an opportunity to discuss the last 70 days or so of this administration, how important it is to get things done for the American people. And that's their focus. That is genuinely their focus. Yes, Pat.
Okay, so just a couple more months of Karine, and then we'll be done with that. Meanwhile, Biden is in the Oval Office yelling at reporters about cameras.
President Biden, do you think that you can get a hostage deal by the end of your term?
You think you can get hit in the head by a camera behind you? All right. Thank you all. Well, Mr. President.
Okay, so I don't know if you can hear it in detail, but the person recording this video is laughing. She's like laughing at him. You can hear she's kind of giggling. Like, I can't believe this dude. He's our president? Hilarious. Here, I'll turn it up.
Behind you. All right. Thank you all. Well, Mr. President.
President Biden, do you
All right, so that's our president. He'll be meeting with Trump tomorrow. Trump is returning to the White House, and Mike Johnson told us he'll also be coming back to the Capitol. The man they told us was going to end American democracy, who they were screeching about for years on end, who they said would never, ever step foot in the White House, will be back there tomorrow to begin the transition back to the White House. All right, and so we're excited about that. Let's carry on, my friends, and see what's happening in some J6 cases. Dad's home. Yeah, that's funny. All right, so we've got some J6 cases. The DOJ is refusing to stop their prosecutions of the J6 defendants. Steve Baker is one defendant who was there doing journalism, who has been improperly prosecuted by the corrupt DOJ. Lefty journalists not prosecuted. Steve Baker, who has been holding the government accountable and investigating the J6 saga, is being prosecuted. And so now that Trump has won the election and has already explained that he'll be commuting and pardoning the J6ers who are victims of political prosecutions enacted by our government, prosecuted by our own government, even if there were crimes committed there, there were not prosecutions that were brought via equal protection of the law. Certain classes of people got their lives obliterated, where other classes of people were supported and bailed out by Kamala Harris. So let's keep that in mind. But Steve Baker was there reporting on this, and they charged him. And now, since Trump has won, he's asking for continuance in his case. But unfortunately, the DOJ is saying no. They're going to try to squeeze people over these last 2 months, including people like William Alexander Pope, who you know on X and is a great follow. I really encourage you to support him at Free State Will on X because he's doing great work and keeping the pressure on the DOJ solo, doing an awesome job doing it. So he's also asking for a continuance because Trump has made promises, and a normal, reasonable prosecutor with 2 months left on the clock would not continue their partisan hackery if they were actually prosecuting according to the interest of justice. The American people have already spoken on this, and we'll see what the DOJ says, but it looks like they're not going to let up, obviously, because that's who they are. But here is what Stephen Baker said in his motion to continue. It's a short one, drafted by William Shipley Jr. You know him as Shipwrecked Crew on X. And Steve Baker's on X, by the way. And I recommend you follow him and Shipwrecked Crew because they're both doing good work in these matters. So here's what he says. All right, comes now defendant Stephen Baker, by and through his counsel, and moves this court to vacate all the dates that are coming up. It's in the interest of justice. Trump won. The DOJ is going to have a new boss in town, dad's home, and he's going to wants us to set a status conference for this case in February, a couple weeks after Trump takes office. However, on Friday, November 8th, the DOJ special counsel Jack Smith in the Trump prosecution case made an unopposed motion to vacate the briefing schedule in the January 6th case against Trump. The entirety of that motion says, Your Honor, so here's what Jack Smith says. Okay, I know this case is not being prosecuted by Jack Smith, it's regular DOJ prosecutors. But even Jack is saying the election was held and now it's unprecedented circumstances. That's an idea that Trump was going to win. Everybody knew it. By December 2, the government will file a status report. We've consulted with the defense, and so we're vacating these dates. The point being, if Trump's case is getting vacated and the DOJ is leaving him alone, how about us? So by that motion, the Justice Department, Your Honor, took the official position that the results of the November 5th election has resulted in an unprecedented circumstance, which they're just going to say, oh, it's only because of Trump, that constitutes grounds for pausing an ongoing criminal prosecution of a defendant in connection with the events of J6, saying, see, if they're going to stop that case, they got to stop this one. President-elect Trump stated on multiple occasions throughout his presidential campaign that if elected, he intended to issue pardons, sentence commutations, and order the dismissal of pending cases, and in other ways, bring an end to the DOJ's prosecutorial endeavors about J6. So given the position now that the DOJ, and even through Jack Smith, who's directly supervised by Garland, now that they're pursuing in the interest of justice, dropping the Trump case, that is what should happen here. It justifies pausing all proceedings in this matter, with the parties responding back to this court 70 days from now, not long at all, back in January, once Trump is in office. A continuance would conserve resources of this court. We don't need to have a trial and go through all of that if Trump's just going to come out and pardon us. And so for defendant Baker, the resources that might needlessly be expended are a lot. Personal financial costs. Baker's got to travel from Texas to Washington, D.C. And by the way, just as a reminder, remember Washington, D.C. this last election voted 93% for Kamala. 93%, which is why all the cases are there. The cost of housing and similar costs are also incurred by defense counsel, most of which would be avoided if we could just postpone this until Trump comes in. Now, for the government, further work by their attorneys would be necessary during that delay. And the consequences of denying this motion, if you don't grant it, with the history of the J6 cases as a backdrop, almost certain convictions for felony and misdemeanor offenses that would not happen otherwise. Like if we go forward, we're going to get convicted because it's DC. It's a rigged jurisdiction. The unique circumstances now before this court, a president-elect having pledged to reverse the decision of the prior administration, and the DOJ is now making a representation in another case that they need a delay. We're justified here. This change in circumstances also compels the court to grant this motion just as the district court judge did, Judge Chutkan, it did in her case. So to deny this motion, Your Honor, is going to be in opposition to the official DOJ position. It would run contrary to the interest of justice and likely subject Steve Baker to criminal convictions for no reason, other than we're just in the middle of it. Before the government makes the claim that the people have an interest in the administration of justice, Baker would like to point out that the, quote, people The people, on behalf of whom the government purports to speak, made their voices clearly heard on November 5th, and that should mean something. So don't act like you're representing the people by doing the opposite of what the people just voted for. That should mean something to the DOJ without regard to what administration is now in charge. You have a new boss coming in. You do not need to continue these prosecutions just to get it done like vindictive little prosecutors in the last final minutes of the game. But they want to make it hurt because that's what their whole life is about. So we see another filing from Free State Will also is making the same argument. He says, on November 5th, the American people, Free State Will, aka William Alexander Pope, at Free State Will on X, representing himself, could use your support. Says, on November 5th, the American people elected Donald Trump to be president of the United States. In delivering both an electoral victory and popular vote majority, the American people gave President Trump a mandate to carry out the agenda he campaigned on, which includes ending the J6 prosecutions and pardoning those who exercise their First Amendment rights to assemble at the Capitol. In contrast, Harris campaigned on continuing the prosecutions, and her platform was rejected. This outcome means a new mandate from the people justifies a continuance of this trial into the next administration, saying American courts and written opinions have long pointed out the Declaration of Independence as a foundational document in our legal system. One of those principles is that the governments derive their powers from consent of the governed. In a Supreme Court case, they talked about this, saying there is a continuing relationship between the people. And so accordingly, this court, whose powers are derived from the people, should act in accordance with the people's vote. Now, while the current administration insists on continuing to pursue these charges against me, says Will, this court has broad discretion in all things, especially in matters of judicial economy. The court, you can set your own schedule and stuff like that. So if you have my trial, which is coming up on December 2nd for Will, trial, this court will spend long hours deciding disagreements over motions in limine and motions to compel and the admissibility of evidence and voir dire, jury selection, jury instructions. We're going to have 2 weeks selecting juries. Then we're going to hear trial. Regardless of what happens, the end result will be that the judicial economy will be wasted because there will never be a sentencing and I will be free. Trump is going to come into office by the time all this is concluded. The next administration has expressed a strong desire to investigate the involvement of federal agencies. Now, as this court knows very well, many of my motions have involved this subject, and we've read some of Will's stuff here before, and it's a lot of fun. One of them in particular, where he talks about really how prosecutors are not that attractive, which is true. I believe it is likely that exculpatory information that this administration, aka the Biden administration, has withheld will become available to me. If emerging information would have supported my, quote, raindrop theory defense, or if it pertains to one of many other requests, I will have a strong argument to have my trial overturned on appeal. Of course, a new trial would also drain judicial resources, and so the court could mitigate this risk by continuing my trial date until after the new administration takes office to see what other exculpatory information might emerge once they stop covering up the truth. The court is also aware of the strong possibility that a jury in my case might decide facts differently than the court has decided them in its bench verdict for my brother. Any significant differentiation will likely give my brother additional avenues for his appeal and bolster his arguments. And so those processes will also drain judicial resources, and so we don't need to do that. I also believe it's likely that some of the witnesses in my trial may perjure themselves. I don't want to damage their careers, but I will confront them, and I will vigorously question witnesses that are not being truthful. But if the trial is continued, I believe it's possible this could be resolved without a trial, but we need a continuance to do that. Now, I'm also sensitive to the fact that more than 90% of DC residents voted for Harris, like 93, and that they may find it especially difficult to look past those biases and be fair jurors. The current mood in DC will make jury selection even more difficult. I continue to believe that a fair jury trial is not possible for our defendants in DC. But if there should be a jury trial, it should happen after emotions have had time to cool. Not in December, when liberals are frothing at the mouth, fuming mad that Trump won. Lastly, a continuance is justified because it is detrimental to national unity. The people have signaled their desire for these prosecutions to cease. While the current administration seems intent on pursuing these cases up until Trump is inaugurated, such a course of action is not wise or beneficial. Now, as I look at this from a 1,000-foot perspective, I find it important to renew my warning that wielding extreme government force can lead to a dangerous cycle of escalation from both sides. I also renew my call from the same filing for the government to begin bestowing mercy on the hundreds of J6 defendants whose lives are being crushed by them. That warning and plea was included in a filing where I withdrew my motion for sanctions because I wanted peace and reconciliation, but my attempt at an olive branch was rejected by the government, and the prosecution team seems foolishly intent on vindictiveness in this final hour. It would be wise to view this as a final opportunity to make peace and take 2 weeks off in December because Trump is coming in. And for these reasons, I respectfully ask the court continue my trial date for at least 3 months. The government opposes a continuance. Should the court not grant this motion immediately, I ask the court to order a normal response times to be sped up so we can resolve this quickly because we've got trial coming up and we want to plan for Thanksgiving. Respectfully submitted as a pro se, meaning he's representing himself, William Pope, a J6 defendant out of the District of Columbia. And of course, you can follow him at Free State Will. This account right here, this is what he looks like. Great account and great dude fighting his butt off. We support Free State Will. Here is the government's response. So we read 2 motions to continue, one from Stephen Baker, one from Free State Will. This is the government's response in opposition to Baker, which will be the same basic template in most J6 cases. They say, all right, the United States is back. They say at a pretrial conference back in November, the defense said it was ready to go to trial. Then they notified that they wanted to change their plea. Steve Baker has taken a change of plea or is in the process of that, is my understanding. On Sunday, November 10th, the evening before Veterans Day, they then filed the instant motion. So they were going to go take a plea. He intended to enter pleas of guilty rather than going to a bench trial. Okay, so trial was scheduled. They said, nope, no trial, let's take a plea. Then Trump wins. Actually, they did that after the election, right? The election was on the 5th. They had the conference the next day. We're ready for trial. Then they say, actually, no, we're going to take a plea. Then actually, no, we're not going to take a plea. Then we're going to vacate the dates. They say, but nothing's changed. No material change to the facts or law have changed since November 6th because it's after the election. So like you said, you were ready for trial on the 6th. No takesy backsies. There is a public interest in the prompt and efficient administration of justice. The government disagrees that a continuance is warranted here, and the court should proceed as in any other prosecution, as they did in all of these other cases, right? Huge paragraph of other cases. They cite to Jack Smith, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't match this case. That motion is about a president-elect, and there's no president-elect in this case. Steve Baker is just a private citizen, so it doesn't apply. And so since you said you were ready the day after the election, we are going to say that you're ready the day after the election, and we're not going to want a continuance signed by Monica Isaiah Jasowicz out of the DC's office. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep our eye on it. Hopefully these guys don't have to go to trial and go through all of this. But if they do, we hope Trump is very speedy with remedying these problems. Now, here is one person who's helping with the Trump transition. His name is Mark Paoletta. And he's an attorney, and he's issuing a stern warning to everybody in the DOJ who's continuing this type of garbage. He says, President Trump was elected by the American people to carry out his agenda, which includes the following. 1, securing the southern border, mass deportations of illegal aliens, beginning with the R's and the M's. surging resources to process immigration and asylum claims, clearing out backlogs, ending abuse of the asylum system, ending automatic citizenship for birthright, and taking federal actions to prevent sanctuary cities from obstructing federal immigration enforcement. That's a nice list. And this is called birthright citizenship. We're one of a few countries that still does it. And I think it's a misinterpretation of our law. It says, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. If you're here illegally, you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the nation state. That's us. Therefore, you don't get citizenship. But we continue. Restoring law and order across the country. Rescuing our cities from prosecutors. Stopping the lawfare and the persecution of political opponents like our J6ers. That is unprecedented in American history and destroying our democracy. He says we're going to grant pardons or commutations to J6 defendants and other defendants who've been subjected to politically driven lawfare prosecutions and sentences. We're going to abolish DEI, protect the right to speech, religion, and the Second Amendment, protect religious liberties, investigate and prosecute anti-Semitism, protect parents and their rights from irreparable transgender surgeries that are happening on our minors, paving the way for an energy boom and holding those accountable who weaponized the government to abuse Americans. These are all positions Trump has campaigned on and that career DOJ lawyers may be working on to accomplish Trump's lawful agenda. They're required, if you're at the DOJ, to do this. Hopefully, they will be as committed to helping Trump implement this agenda as they did with Biden. Of course, political leadership welcomes feedback to help improve a project. But once the decision is made to move forward, career employees are required to implement the plan. Of course, no one will push them to implement flagrantly illegal actions like Biden did with his student loan plan, where he thumbed his nose at the Supreme Court ruling and then tried to implement another illegal plan, which was also struck down. In fact, the media was cheering on his lawbreaking. We remember that. I don't recall reading any stories about career attorneys being concerned about blatantly violating the law then. If these career DOJ employees won't implement Trump's program in good faith, they should leave. Those employees who engage in so-called, quote, resistance against the duly elected president's lawful agenda would be subverting American democracy. Finally, those that take such actions would be subject to disciplinary matters, including termination. I look forward to President Trump's team making America great again, especially at the DOJ and the FBI. Here's Mark Paoletta explaining more.
You know, Brian, who would have thought it's controversial that when a new boss comes in with a new agenda, that the people who work there are going to support the president's agenda, right? Only in the federal government, only with a deep swamp do people, career employees think that they get to run the joint, as it were. President Trump was reelected with an overwhelming majority of an agenda by the American people, popularly supported. So deporting millions of illegal aliens out of this country, securing the border, banning DEI, all that destructive stuff that the Biden administration let run wild, getting boys out of girls' sports. Those are all the things that the Department of Justice is going to work on. And those are the things that the Department of Justice employees, career employees, are going to support. And if they don't want to support it, they should leave.
Get out. You're not welcome if you're going to be there digging your heels in and obstructing the duly elected president's agenda. We're glad to see that these incoming individuals are there, and it sounds like they mean business. We'll be following along. Thanks for subscribing as we do. All right, we've got one final story, my friends, and then I cannot wait to hear from you. I see some interesting comments out there. And some interesting rumors. Do we have any new appointments while the show has been unfolding? Well, I guess maybe we might. Let's see. All right, before we get there, we got this story. Liberals are now blaming Elon Musk and STARLINK for rigging the election. Very unhappy that Kamala lost. Obviously, somebody else is responsible for this. It's not their terrible ideas, their wrecking of America, and their lunacy. No. It's the space lasers. Here is the story from The Intercept. The Telegraph, rather, says left-wing conspiracy theorists now claim that Elon Musk used his satellites to steal the election. Oh, no. That's old phrase I guess they've repurposed. It used to be right-wing conspiracy theorists. Now it's left-wingers. Well, it's supposed to be a dirty word, but, you know, unlike them, they call us right-wing conspiracy theorists. And as a result of that label, they want us censored, banned, canceled, deplatformed, debanked, no airlines, doxed, everything. Because we're conspiracy theorists, we're harmful and dangerous and all these things. You're not going to hear that same demand from the right. These people want to get on YouTube and talk about Elon and his space laser stealing Dominion machines, whatever. Go hog wild. I encourage them to investigate our elections because we've had a lot of problems with them. And we still don't trust them, even though our guy won. They tried to throw him off. Their passwords were on the internet. It's a mess. So talk all you want, left-wing conspiracy theorists. Get out there and get after it. Have some fun. But this is probably not anything that happened, okay? Don't be a nut. So social media users are now spreading this all over the place. And you can see, here's what some of it looks like. Joe G on here says, I'm not into conspiracy theories, but something doesn't add up. And yes, STARLINK could be involved. There's no way she won just a handful of states. Almost feel like this results map was designed. Someone says, I saw an ABC News report with a poll worker saying that they were using Starlink internet when they had a problem. And then Starlink just fixed it. Susie says, absolutely, there are poll workers verifying on video that Starlink was used to tabulate the ballots. I think we need a forensic audit to start of all the states where no voter ID is required. I'm down for that. I'm down for that, yeah. We should have a close look at our elections through and through. He used Starlink to foil a Ukrainian assault on warships. Now he's doing it to protect an election. And so you can see the list goes on and on. The other individual who's talking about this says, if Democrats don't initiate a recount for the swing states and bring an investigation into Elon Musk's involvement in the Trump campaign, they are willfully ceding our nation to fascism in the face of the results across 7 states that defy any precedent or reasonable explanation. We all deserve a swing state hand recount. Hilarious. Elon did it. It's definitely not them. It's some other technological device. Here's the story. Say they claim it was stolen. They say that 20 million votes in the election have, quote, disappeared, or that Starlink was used to interfere. There's a 9-minute video claiming states had used, quote, Starlink in order to tally up the votes. It had more than 100,000 likes, 55,000 shares, 9,000 times on TikTok. On Threads, one post was viewed more than 42,000 times, 840 shares. It said Starlink had been exploding communication satellites. And Musk is destroying the evidence. They said that the voting had been hacked at the tabulation level. Wow, this sounds like they're denying the election. And there's no widespread evidence of this. And no court has ever proven this. And so they're conspiracy theorists. And if we applied their rules to them, well, they'd be banned from the internet and canceled. We got strikes. We got suspended for election misinformation, for questioning 2020. Now, hashtags, and we were only talking, well, we were talking about a lot of things, but what we were showing were the actual changes that were happening in the courts because they use COVID to manipulate the rules. Hashtags like Trump cheated have been shared across Threads and X, and others calling for recounts. Swing state hand recount. Probably find out Trump won by a lot more. We saw here that in states like Wisconsin, they had over 100% turnout. How does that happen? Yeah, go check them. And why don't we have ID? We can vote with ID in all of those other states. A bunch of states that Kamala won, there's no voter ID required. So how about you do your forensic audit, we pass voter ID, we make sure that our elections are safe and secure, and Republicans will win for the next 50 years. There is no evidence to support the claims on social media, they say. Last week, Jen Easterly from CISA said there's no evidence of any fraud. Allegations that there are millions of missing votes have been spread by both sides, and the discrepancy has now been tightening. In fact, we talked about the discrepancy. Remember, there was a missing batch of votes. There was like 10 million or 20 million votes, but the popular votes are still coming in, and so that margin is shrinking up now. Do not concede, Kamala has received a bunch of votes, and They're doing the thing. All right, so we'll keep our eye on that one. You saw a bunch of other posts out there. Joe Rogan and his conversation is prompting other people to demand a hand recount, and we'll see where it goes. So in the meantime, liberals will continue to point to other people, blame other sources for their problems, and we hope they continue to do that for the next 4 years. All right, and so let's see what you guys say about this. It's a beautiful day and an amazing Tuesday. I see some great comments. Thank you, my friends, for being here. If you're just joining us, let's do a quick recap on the things we covered. So if you missed it, you know what we talked about. We went through the New York emails, the Alvin Bragg prosecution in the falsified documents case where Trump was found guilty on 34 criminal charges. We covered that. Looks like that sentencing is going to be postponed, perhaps indefinitely. We also talked about Jack Smith, and he got a very fun lawsuit filed courtesy of our friends in Texas saying, you better preserve your records or else, buddy boy, because we're coming in hot. The FBI's freaked out. Christopher Wray is planning on being fired. Good riddance to him. And we had more reaction from Karine saying that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are just doing swell. We also talked about the January 6 cases and how the DOJ is going to continue to prosecute our J6ers, even though they're all going to be fired in 2 months. But they're going to get their pound of flesh. Their last final 60 days of vindictiveness will be taken out on Americans who have been victimized by our own government. We talked about Steve Baker's case, Free State Will's case. Be sure to follow them, support those guys, along with the rest of our innocent J6ers. And we talked about Mark Paoletta, who has a warning for DOJ officials there. Get on board or get out. Then Elon is being blamed for rigging the elections with his space lasers and stuff like that. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. And let's see what you say about this. It's a beautiful Tuesday. I hope your week is unfolding. Hopefully, you still got some good vibes happening out there. Hey, here's a statement from Trump. Is this official? So we got a new post. I'm pleased to announce that William Joseph McGinley is going to be White House counsel. He's smart, tenacious lawyer. He served my first term as the cabinet secretary. Bill has served as general counsel and been a partner. Well, shout out to William Joseph McGinley. Don't know anything about the guy, but that is another post over another post that looks like it's filled. Okay, great. This is great. Thank you from Viva. Okay, Viva gave us an update on Robert Barnes, and thank you for this, man. Apparently he's still in the hospital. And so Viva just posted this. Robert Barnes, Viva Fry, Robert Barnes' friend, says, I just got an update from Robert. He texted, which is good. And as anybody who knows him knows well, he's not very wordy in texts or emails at all. If you ever email Robert Barnes, he's hey, Robert, hey, hope you're doing well. All these things, he sends one word back. Okay. Okay, so we got you scheduled for this, gonna do this, gonna do this, gonna do this. We'll see you at 1 o'clock. Okay, all right, he'll be there. And he's there. But anyways, he's there still. He said, still in the hospital, hopefully better and out soon. Many thanks for all the prayers, blessings, and good wishes. So my friends, if you're praying for Robert Barnes, continue to do that. He's in the hospital, hopefully recovering quickly. And we'll wish and pray for his speedy recovery. He says, keep the prayers coming. They're real. I know he appreciates them. So Godspeed and God bless. Good update, courtesy of Viva. So prayers up for Robert Barnes out there. Get well soon, Robert. We'll see you back here soon. All right. So, my friends, thanks for sending those to Robert. He's a good dude. And we hope that he heals up rapidly. Here are some updates. Hey, former LEO is in the house. What's up, my friends? Thanks for these donos. Former LEO says, I live my life by 4 simple words from former that I've used for decades. Spring forward, fall back. Did you just change your clock, former? Wasn't that like last week? Well, welcome aboard onto the time zone. We're glad to have you here. Here's one from Cliff Norman. What's up, Cliff? Says, the conspiracy loons on the left surpass anything by the tinfoil hat types on the right. Did Elon rig all the polls that showed Trump ahead in the national poll? A poll in which he never led in 2016. Hillary won the popular vote but lost the election, see below. Or 2020. Carville told his liberal friends ecstatic when Kamala was up by 1%. She has to be up by 5 to 6 points in the national poll to move the needle in the 7 swing states. Most polls at the end were showing Trump up in the polls. Yeah, and it wasn't even close in a lot of swing states. So, I mean, he would have had to rig, he would have had to move like hundreds of thousands of votes. Trump 2020 was like 30,000 votes. It was 11,000 in Arizona, 11,000 in Georgia, 12,000 in Wisconsin. Super close. And they fudged the numbers at the margins by changing the election rules and delivered ballots as late as they possibly could to close the gaps. We saw it. Jennifer says, Melania by Melania Trump is a great read with lots of cool photos. That's awesome, Jennifer. Yeah, I have not gotten a copy of it yet, but it does look interesting. It looks very Melania. It does. Thank you, Jennifer. Will Crump says, all of these judges and prosecutors know they were acting in concert with the Biden DOJ to violate Trump's constitutional rights. Yes, they do. I think that's exactly right. And they'll fake that they were just pursuing justice, but we all know that they were acting with bias. It's evident. Londo says Arizona has been fixed for decades. Certainly feels that way. Hey, Rick Donner is sharing this one. Says an Arizona judge. Yeah, I think we'll cover this tomorrow. An Arizona judge in the 2020 electors case, the Arizona criminal prosecution brought by our Attorney General Chris Mays against the alternate electors. The judge in that case is now recusing himself because he is not a fan of Trump. Hey, Spuds! Hey, we sent some prayers to the Spuds household. We got an update. Hey, thanks to everyone with their prayers and well wishes. Mama Spuds is doing much better. She was chuckling and smiling more than she has ever been. Still have a long way to go, but stay tuned. We got Mama Spuds here. Mama Spuds. What a beautiful Mama Spuds. Shout out to Mama Spuds in the house. Sending some good prayers, healing energy your way, Mama Spuds. We're glad that you're smiling and having a good day. Spuds, thanks for sharing that with us so we can send some love. We appreciate it. Chubby says, hey, Mercon freezing the sentencing is just to give the Democrats a new label to beat to death over the next 4 years. Oh, he's the first president in modern history to have a criminal sentencing hanging over his entire term. It's a dirty move. I wish Trump's team could fight it somehow, but they did waive right to a speedy trial, so they can't use that. No idea if there's something else that they can try. Yeah, I mean, I think even if it is stayed when they come back, they're still going to have, like, the government's going to still have a very tough time moving forward with it because of immunity. But I agree. I think you're right that they could let it linger if the judge wants to be spiteful. And he is a spiteful guy, so he might do that. NY says the Presidential Transition Act of 1963 establishes the president-elect as the government official from the period the election and inauguration of the executive office of the president. That is the official government office, arguably with official acts covered under the immunity decision of the Supreme Court. So hands off, he's a government official, and interference would be able to be enjoined with a federal injunction. Thank you, NY. Tyler Lease. What's up, Tyler Lease? Love the flex, my friend. Keep on pumping iron. Wendy W. Wendy, thank you for becoming a supporter. Glad to have you. Grab the stream from this morning. We've got this one from Larry Lyons. What's up, Larry? Says, how could Elon mess with the vote count when we've been told 1 trillion times the system is not hooked up to the interwebs? Yeah. Well, I guess it is now. It wasn't when we claimed it was, but it is now. And it's very strange because it wasn't rigged in 2020, but it is rigged now. It wasn't people like Jenna Griswold or Jocelyn Benson who are doing the rigging. No, it's Elon with his space lasers. All right. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Hey, Paul Hoffman. What's up, Paul? 9 months as a member. That's a new baby. Says replace Jack and make the motion to dismiss with prejudice. Replace Jack and make the motion to dismiss with prejudice. From Paul Hoffman. Yeah, we'll see what the final filings look like, but we want with prejudice so it cannot come back. Cliff says, Rob, how Sixth Amendment violations do you see from this definition? This should be thrown out on appeal. Can Juan and Bragg be disbarred for this malpractice? No, they won't. I mean, it's New York, so the New York bar is never going to disbar Bragg. And Juan Mercan's a judge, so you'd have to impeach him to remove him. But yeah, the whole case is a violation of confrontation clause, due process, many things. Hey, Jack is in the house. What's up, Jack? Bringing in 5 membos. Thank you, Jack. Matt Smith is here. Cynthia Cotney, welcome. Robin Swieger, and Fires in the Tubble. Fire in the Stubble. What's up? Welcome, Jack. Thanks for bringing in 5 new membos. Hey, Leona. Thank you for reminding everybody to like that like button. If you haven't already, we'd appreciate it. It says, Robert's video are great. Thank God for this show because I wouldn't know what the heck's going on, says Leona. Me either, Leona. If we didn't have this time together, I'd be also very confused. We have to make sense of it here together. We're working through it. Eddie Van Zant. Eddie says, you know, when you mention Texas, I will be there. Eddie sent me a text message also the other day blaming me for the Kerry Lake loss in Arizona, which I apparently am fully responsible for. I'll take it. All right. What's up, Eddie? Sheila the Pooh. Hey, Sheila, bringing in 10 membos. Thank you, Sheila. Look at this. Russell Warren. Charles Chat is here. We got Rossi L, Jules Pellico, Brother Ted, Benjamin Ben, Terry Ruggiero. We've got Oyo, Mike Hackett, and Shelly Scott. Gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila Pooh. Thank you, Sheila. A million hugs to you. We appreciate it. Hey, Jack Smith is here. Jack Smith sent in a super chat. He says, I'm not a real boy. No, you're not, Jack. You're not. Because you were illegally appointed and you were never confirmed by the Senate. You're not a real boy. But we thank you for the super chat. Maybe in a different life, you'll be a legitimate prosecutor, but not today. Thanks, Jack, for the dono, for being here. Hey, Sheila Pooh, 9 months as a membo. Hey, we got a baby. It's a real boy. We do. So Jack's not a real boy, but thankfully, Sheila, 9 months as a membo. We got a new real boy. Thanks, Sheila, for being a membo for 9 months full term. And Sheila says, I am loving this FOIA request. Covered it all. It was great. Wasn't that fun? That was a fun one. I like how he targeted New York and Fannyland and everyone else. I hope they get it. Eddie Van Zant from Texas says, Ken Paxton is the bomb. And he belongs to Texas, Rob. You have to be able to count votes to get an attorney general like Ken. Maricopa County, anyone? Your fault. See? I know, it's my fault. I'm responsible for everything bad that happens in Arizona. I'll work a lot harder next time. My apologies. NY says, so I get Ken Paxton, but I don't think he has standing. Congress should send a subpoena to prevent spoliation of evidence, meaning the destruction of evidence. The Senate can follow after Jan 5. Subpoenas from both houses are pretty powerful. Cliff Norman says, Alina Abba is emerging as a front runner for Trump's press secretary. Oh, gosh. Press secretary Alina Abba. I don't know what we would do here if that happened. We'll just have to wait and see. Voice of the People says, Oversight Committee hearing on FEMA, 11/19/2024. You covering that, Voice? Voice of the People. Check out that channel. They'll be covering some good stuff. We got NY says, unless Congress subpoenas before the inauguration, I don't see this Paxton thing working. Biden can simply classify all this information. Trump would be able to retrieve it, but it would put up a temporary smokescreen. Hey, Eddie says, it's been a minute. Just thought I'd got to remind you again of how great is Texas and how great Ken Paxton is. We have the Alamo. We got Six Flags. We got oil, Rob. And you have Maricopa County. You can't even count votes there. That's what you have. I hold you accountable. It's true. We can't count votes here. And I also can't really even count numbers on this stream ever. Trying to do math, I think like a baby's like 8 months term. I have no idea what the numbers are. It must be a Maricopa County thing. I don't know. You guys in Texas must have better math brains. Eddie, thanks for the dono, my man. Thanks for being here. Yes, your state's great. Yes, we can't count. I know I'm responsible. Jack Mack, what's up? Says, I ordered chicken wings via DoorDash one time, and the order was delivered with one of the wings eaten, and the bone was back in the box. I didn't eat it. Yeah. That is just malicious and rude. Right? Like if you're going to take somebody's chicken wing, maybe you leave them with some deniability. You're like, wait a minute, I ordered 12 wings. I got 11. What happened to the 11th one? But you maybe will still eat that meal. But to put it back in the box, that's what Jack Smith did. They took the evidence out and they did whatever they wanted to it. And they put it back in the box. It's disgusting. Jack, you shouldn't have eaten it. But I'm sorry that happened to you. That's a malicious person. They should be investigated immediately and imprisoned. Here's Clocky. Breaking news. John Ratcliffe is going to lead the CIA. Are you serious? Man, I remember John Ratcliffe. He was DNI. Oh, interesting. So he'll be there. Is the post. Did this come officially from Trump? I haven't seen it officially from Trump. We're being very cautious about all these because there's a lot of rumor, there's a lot of speculation, but I don't know. Is this actually from Trump? I don't know. So thank you for the heads up, but we'll keep our eye on it. All right, Insider Paper, what's up? We got this one from Londo. Says, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Glocky says, breaking news. We also have a special envoy to the Middle East who got announced. Thank you, Glocky. Aubin Ann, what's up, Aubin? Thanks for becoming a supporter. Grab the members-only morning stream in the house. Dove Macy says, big fan, Rob. A voice of reason in an insane world. Thank you, Dove Macy, for being here. Thanks for becoming a member. Thanks for supporting us and for being here with us today. We're grateful for you. We got V is Never Silent says, hit the like button, baby. Glocky is saying, William Ginley is going to be White House counsel. Interesting. Pritchie says, what a week, man. Trump will save the world for our newest baby. Oh, we do have a new baby. 9 months as a member. Thank you, Pritchie. Trump will save the world. We're going to have a lot of healthy, happy children in this world. Jack Mack says, who do you guys think will be the next press secretary? Will McEnany return? Peter Doocy? Carrie Lake? Just kidding about Carrie Lake, but thankfully not Karine Jean-Pierre soon. Some people are saying Alina Abba, apparently. Alina Abba? Interesting. Ducey would be fun. Tucker Carlson, but he rejected it. Queen Bee's Art Hive says, we did it! We did it. 12 months. Happy anniversary. 1 year anniversary, Queen Bee's Art Hive. I love you, watchers, and Rob. Thank you, Queen Bees. We love you back. And I can speak for everybody. We love you back. Thanks for being an amazing member for 1 full year. Thanks for supporting our work. We did it. Alpha She-Wolf, 2 babies in the house. 18 months. Pretty sure that's 2 babies divided by 9, I think. I can't wait for our 250th celebration with Trump. Yeah, he made a video about that. It's going to be epic. We're going to celebrate for a full year. It's going to be great. Schlista, what's up, Schlista? Says Trump and the new Congress need to redistrict the courts, move to D.C. into the 4th district, and move Maryland into the 3rd district. Get rid of the D.C. Circuit Court. Couldn't agree with that any harder. It needs to go. Lot in D.C. needs to be divested from D.C. Hey, Sheila Pooh, 5 more members. Thank you, Sheila. Look who's here. Susie Grossbeck, we need pieces here. Daryl Wallace, Nathan McDowell, and Quentin Daniels are brought in as new members, courtesy of Sheila. And new members, you can grab the members only Telegram link in the community tab section on YouTube, and we'll see you in the after party. One old guy's opinions says unconstitutional January 6 witch trials must end. Well, they're not ending anytime soon, not until Trump comes in and actually orders it. They're just going to keep moving forward, at least with Baker's case. Here's one with Sheila Pooh says, if Jack and these other fake prosecutors destroy evidence, can they be charged under the statute they prosecuted the J6 defendants with? Obstruction of an official proceeding? Probably not. So it is a great question, but remember, they actually narrowed, like the Supreme Court came back and narrowed that charge. So it would have to be a document used in an official proceeding. So think of it like the Electoral College papers in the Electoral College counting. Like those items need to be deleted. And then you'd also need some intentionality. You'd also need some guilty mens rea to say you intentionally destroyed those things. That's why all these preservation records are going out right now to say you're on notice, don't delete anything. Congress sent one, and Texas obviously just sent one that we talked about. They're on notice, don't delete anything. But then if you have like the Robert Mueller morons, like, well, I just couldn't remember my password 5 times. What? You knew what your password was. You intentionally deleted it. But you can't prove the intentionality there because it was just a mistake or incompetence. It's always a mistake or incompetence. So they've got plausible deniability. Then it's up to the DOJ as to whether to charge them or not. Now, same thing happened, of course. There's no intentionality behind any of Trump's charges. There's no intentionality. He intended to take classified documents that he thought that were illegal, that he didn't have access or possession to. Not at all. They were his documents, actually, because he was the president. There's no intentionality about knowingly believing the election was legitimate, but wanting to challenge it anyways, right? There's no intentionality there, but they prosecuted him anyways. So the question is, will the prosecutors bring the charges against those people? If I had to guess, I doubt it, because Republicans aren't as sick as these Democratic prosecutors are. And we actually don't want them to weaponize the justice system. But if they do investigate and find crimes, we do hope that they prosecute them for the crimes that actually have probable cause. They'll all be afforded the presumption of innocence, the right to confront their accusers, the due process that's afforded to them under the law. And guess what? We're not even going to gag them like they gagged Trump. We won't even do that. But if they committed crimes, yeah, they'll be afforded all the protections of our justice system and they'll be prosecuted accordingly. Thank you, Sheila. Here is one from White Buffalo. Tulsi for Secretary of the Army. Interesting suggestion. Elvis of Dallas says, I have Starlink at home and in my car. I love it. Elvis, that is extremely fancy. So that means you've got the Starlink roam service. And it's on, that's pretty cool. So you get like high speed internet on the road. That is really cool. Yeah, I've seen that. You pay for the roam. That's pretty cool. All right. Is it the smaller one? I've got the bigger one, but I haven't gotten the smaller one. I think I'm going to get the smaller one. Why not? All right. Thank you, Elvis. Very cool. Hey, and it's great. Starlink's great. We have it up at the cabin. It's awesome. Hey, Starlink is awesome. Get some. Get one. One old guy says, resisting of career DOJ is a Hatch Act violation, especially if they are promoting a political party's platform tenets. Dismiss them. Yeah, they absolutely should be fired. They're there to serve at the pleasure of the president. And if they're not complying with his agenda, they got to go. A bad poet says, 1, Kamala is broke. 2, lefty pods, mass unsubscribe. 17 months as a membo. Thank you, a bad poet. Yeah, she's down, I think, in the whole 20 million. Not good. Sending out fundraising emails and more. NY says, the problem Democrats have is once they get a vote, they think it's like The Walking Dead. You are forever a zombie. People are free to change their minds. One old guy says, where are the 20 million votes Biden got in 2020? Did they not vote? The 20 million are the voting dead. Call Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. Londo says, give them their worst nightmare. Let's completely hand recount Arizona. I'm down for it. Hey, Department of Justice from one old guy. Eddie Van Zant says, hey, I have to let you in on something, Rob. The whole Starlink changing votes things is true. Elon operates out of Texas, and we had to flip the votes so we could implement Project 2025. Yeah, we did it. We laughed and laughed and laughed. You should write an article about it in Time Magazine, Eddie, and explain how you did everything and how Elon did everything, and then just laugh about it. See how the left likes it like they did to us. Yeah, this is how we did it. Road Less Wolf. Yeah, there we go. Okay, there's the post. So Trump dropped it on True Social. There you have it, my friends. Thanks for getting the official document for us. Says, I'm pleased to announce John Ratcliffe is going to be director of the CIA. John Ratcliffe. Interesting. Well, he was the DNI the last time around, and so we know who he is for sure. Interesting. Thank you, Road Less Wolf. Lady I says, Trump needs to have an agency-wide reduction in force. It has been done many times, especially upon administration changes, and they don't just fire the feds, they offer them early retirements. He doesn't need special legislation. He can do it with an executive order. Bonnie says, but Rob, they swore no election machine tabulator could ever be connected to the internet or even interconnected. They were all basically just dumb machines that just counted ballots. So how could Starlink be a culprit? It's a great question, Bonnie. Well, Elon, I don't know, maybe rocket ships did it. They landed little rocket ships into the Dominion machines. I don't really know. I think part of the problem is they just make up whatever they want and tell us whatever they want so that we just shut our mouths, and they continue the facade that their elections are secure when they have the passwords posted on the internet. But you're right, it makes no sense. Matthew Larkin says DACA renewals coming in as early as possible to renew before Trump gets in office. He's already helping the small firm I work at, MAGA, Make America Great Again, from Matthew Larkins. DACA renewals. Hey, Hequibus says, did Kerry Lake really get robbed again? Yeah, it's been called in Arizona for Ruben Gallego, unfortunately. And still waiting to see what Kerry Lake says and what her next steps are, but we'll keep our eye on it. Thank you. We got Tony Hay Munkets says, Rob, can you send this directly to Janine and Laura for a membership? I haven't been able to do good on the roulette table. No, actually, I can't do that, actually, as far as I know. I don't think that I can just make people members. I'm pretty sure I cannot do that. So, don't think so, actually. I don't think I actually have that functionality. So, let me know what you want to do about that, Tony Hay. But thanks for the dono. And Janine and Laura, we hope to see you soon. Here's one. Did you get her? Jamie got one. Okay, I'm a Jacob, Mr. Mike, Natasha, very good. Ikaka Shuttle Service, Lauren, Grogu, Jamie Lepper, Mr. M, Vicky Fellers, and his servant S are coming in. But I don't think you got them. Janine and Laura. Do we have a Janine and Laura in there? Bummer, didn't get them. Sorry, Tony Hay. Hey, we got Rub Some Dirt on it. John Radcliffe is appointed. Amazing. Thank you, Rub Some Dirt on it. Yeah, we'll have to see. I think I remember liking John Ratcliffe. He seemed like a competent person at the time. And didn't he come in kind of at the end? Have to refresh my recollection on him. One old guy says, the only poll that is true is, NY says, you know what Obama would say about your DoorDash chicken order? You didn't order that. Yeah, he probably would. Thank you, NY. Catherine Castano Rex is a new supporter. What's up, Catherine? Welcome back. Glad to have you as a member again. This old guy says, if Alina Abba is the press secretary, I guess we'll be spending a lot more of our live streams covering White House press conferences. I don't know what we'll do. But we'll have to figure that out. That might be too much winning. I don't know if we can take all that winning. I don't know if we can. I don't know if we can take it. Catherine, what's up? Membo for 16 months says my financial situation isn't good right now. Wait a minute. It just says you became a supporter. And it just said you just became a supporter, but you've been a Membo for 16 months. So how'd that happen? Well, I don't know. Catherine. But if you can't afford to be a Membo, I certainly don't want you to come out of pocket and put yourself in a dire financial situation. We're glad to have you as a Membo. But I hope things pick up. We have a new president. We're going to enter the new golden age. It's going to be great. Thank you, Catherine. Hey, Michael Manson, 20 months as a Membo, says, be lucky if Trump picks 30% of the right cabinet. Be lucky if 30% is good. 20 months as a Membo. Thank you, Michael. I'm hoping for a little better numbers than those, but ultimately, I think Trump, the buck stops with Trump, and everybody else is just a small part of the show. So I'm not overly worried about the cabinet, but we do want a strong cabinet. What's up? Rub Some Dirt on it. Says the Radcliffe announcement is directly from Trump's Truth account. Amazing. Thanks for flagging it for us. Tony Hay says Tom H is a Membo. Amelia, Mark is here. Lloyd, we got Donut, we got Tally, Halmir, Sean, Shane, Patriot, and Miranda. Missed them again, Tony Hay. Man, it's a bummer that you're not capturing them, but it's working to my benefit at the same time, But I'd rather have them become Membos. But just keep trying, I guess. Just Me says, hey, don't sweat the count. 4 out of 3 people at Arizona aren't good at math. See, that makes sense to me. Yeah, that makes sense. 4 out of 3. We are pretty bad at math here. Stephen O just thirded that one too. You can do that, right? 4 out of 3. Hey, Let's Go Brandon says, if Kamala could do this to Peanut and Fred, her friends still in power won't hesitate to sign your death certificate before the first kick on your door. Yeah, and we are still going to look into the Peanut situation. It's on my list to go get that search warrant at some point if I can find it. Thank you, Lesko. Barry and McGrowan, what's up? Says Carrie Lake for head of federal election integrity. We need Arizona state election integrity, but yes, we need an overview on and a review of a lot of that. Thank you. We got Jack Mack says, does anyone else think John Ratcliffe looks like Steve Carell from The Office? Yeah, he kind of does. He kind of does. Yeah. Michael Scott. One old guy says, did anyone ever think in the 21st century there would be an administration this lawless? Thank God the grown-ups showed up to take the keys and the Thunderbird away from the kids on November 5th. Barry N. McGrowan says Elon couldn't flip the votes via Starlink. They're not connected to the internet. Well, that's what you think. Now they are. The Republicans went in there and hacked the machines. Alex Jones was in there or something. They're all in there stealing the tubes. V says, Dems were the party of the entertainment mafia, yet how nerdy is it of the U.S. to be entertained more by cabinet picks? Well, I think they're important. But we also, the Senate's very important. The House is very important. What's up? Self says, Carrie Lake to head election integrity. Man, she would be all over that, no doubt. Thank you, Self. Great dono. We'll see what Carrie Lake says. I don't know that I've seen anything from her yet, what the next steps are, what her next play will be, but we'll keep an eye on it. Tony Hay Munkett says, it was a joke, Rob. I know you can't do that, but I haven't hit any of my friends for a month. Tony Hay. So, okay, thank you for that. I didn't know if you were being serious or not, but it's funny either way. I would make them a member on YouTube if I could, but I can't do it. So I'm wondering if they're just not giving them to people who've already gotten them, or if YouTube is if the selection algorithm has changed. Because when people buy, for those of you who don't know, people can gift membos, so you get the morning stream if you're a membo. But it's like a slot machine. So as soon as you buy them, it just hands them out to random people in the chat. He's trying to grab some of his friends in there. I really wish that YouTube allowed you to buy membos for other people, or like even gift cards. Like it'd be great if they could just, hey, have a gift for 1 year to the membo. That'd be awesome. But they don't do that. Thank you for trying, Tony Hay. Hey, Tex Rick says, Rob, I've been cruising this week, just recovering from the election and the year, plus that goes into it. I love this community. I feel you on that, Tex Rick. I've been analogizing it to living in hostile territory for the last 4 years. And now we're emerging. It's like, wait a minute. We might not get canceled on the internet again. We might not get suspended immediately for saying certain things. We might not get prosecuted. It's interesting what possibilities exist in this nice new world. Villa Plot says, I don't care who he picks for press secretary as long as Karine meets this rabbit, which looks scary. So we'll just leave that one alone there. All right. So thank you for Villa Platt. That I don't know what that rabbit's going to. It's going to ask Karine a press question or something. I don't know. But okay. So my friends, it's a beautiful day. C. John says, for Elon's next venture, he will be building voting machines for future elections that will be 1,000% better than anything, says C. John. 20 months as a membo. Oh, could you imagine how much the left would be upset about that? Yes, here's the update from Viva. An update from Barnes. Still in the hospital. Hopefully better and out soon. Many thanks for all the prayers. Godspeed. God bless, peeps. From Barnes. So that's from Viva. Awesome update there. Let's say hello to a couple friends on X before we wrap it up and call it a day. Here's a nice image of a nice couple. Just Law posted this. Fun, winning is fun. Keep accelerating. Trump 2024. Photos of Trump 2024 with Elon blasting off in the background. Nice photo. Hey, BitTorrent. What's up, BitTorrent? David is here, says, I will always remember where I heard Jack Smith wasn't legal. When you went through the Ed Meese report line by line, you and Clarence Thomas jumped on it hard. Now it's part of American history. You're right about that, David. Thanks for being here as we were going through that. James Pepper, what's up, James? Melissa, hey, thank you, Melissa. Says, Robert, it's been awesome sharing the last couple of years with you. You've been a breath of fresh air, comic relief, and a source of positivity. Thank you, good sir. E. Jean Carroll trials, Fanny trials, buttloads of lawfare against Trump, so much more. Much appreciated. Thank you, Melissa. What a nice comment. And Debbie, thank you too. Thank you for these live feeds. Excellent coverage. Thank you, Debbie. Melissa in the house. Hey, Rando. Rando, great to see you. Okay, that was from an older thread. That's why we have so many comments on that. Okay, so the new thread, I don't even know where it is. Where'd that one go? And all right, I can't find it on. I don't know why Elon is not putting the videos here when we're going live. All right, so shout out to our friends on X. Here it is. Golly. All right. Frank, what's up, Frank? Frank Rocco says no proper oaths on the January 6th case. No proper oaths. And I love this issue, right? Jack Smith was illegitimate from even the beginning because he wasn't properly oathed in. Here's a photo of Jack Smith. Thank you for sharing that, Frank. We got this one from Fred Pedemonte. This is what the DOJ looks like right now. Jack Smith is hard at work right there. That's his hand. Shredder goes burr. B. Torn, what's up, Torn? James Pepper's over there. TJ King's in the house. Yeah, he caved. He caved. They were supposed to have sentencing. Liberty. How did he cave? He delayed it, not dismissed it. He caved. Sentencing was supposed to take place on the 19th. Is not going to get sentenced on the 19th. He caved. What's up, AJ? Vote for me. What's up? Vote for me. Some great friends over there on X, my friends. You can follow us there. Just search the name Rob Gouveia ESQ. And of course, follow all your other friends out there in the wilderness on X. But it's great to see everybody. Those are some very nice comments. Heebquist says, is it possible to federally change the voting law to ID required and paper ballots only by executive order? No. No, I don't think that would be possible because the Constitution delegates a bunch of the powers to the states on how they conduct their elections. And so they do that intentionally so that it's more decentralized. I understand the desire to want to have a uniform system across the board, but then we might have a uniform system that's run by Jenna Griswold. So we want it decentralized. And you could make this change, but the mechanism would be via constitutional amendment, I think would be the most legitimate way to do it. Even a federal statute like HAVA and UOCAVA and all those things, they still leave a lot of deference to the states because of the Constitution. Thank you. Hequibus in the house. Thanks for the questions today. Nice to see you. This one from C. John was great. We got Barry N. McGrowan says, someone check out Jerry Nadler's and Maxine Waters' OnlyFans site. Oh, no. That's not real, right? Tell me that's not real. Jerry Nadler and Maxine Waters? Oh, no. Jack Mack says, remember, the 5th of November. Still not tired of winning, folks. Have a lovely evening. We're not going to get tired of winning here. We're going to increase our endurance levels. We got 4 years of winning, so get ready for it, okay? Nobody's getting tired out there. We're going to win for 4 years. It's going to be great. Hey, Boopsy says, Rob, I worry about Trump going to the White House on Biden's invitation. Boopsy. I'm afraid it's a setup for murder or deadly illness. Is this standard for it this time? Yeah, I think it's pretty standard, but you're right. They're right. If they bring Trump like a nice plate of food, no, you're going to really like this steak, Trump. Just try it. And I'm just going to wait for my McDonald's. Thanks. Not hungry, Joe. Trump should not drink the Diet Cokes at the White House. Do not drink the Diet Cokes. Someone needs to warn Trump. No White House Diet Cokes. Wait till he gets back on the plane. Rub some dirt on it, says, perhaps this is what, bring your own Coke. BYODC. Yeah. To DC. Bring your own Diet Coke to DC. Yeah. BYODC DC. All right. Perhaps this is what made the choice. He's former DNI. Yeah, he served from 2020 to 2021. Former U.S. House, Texas. Not from Arizona, though. That's true. Good to see you rub some dirt on it. And one old guy says Jack Smith is so illegal he should be deported. Maybe he will be deported. Back to The Hague. Out of this country. Stephen Mosher, what's up, Stephen? Says expand the court, 4 more justices. Yeah, I mean, the Democrats were going to do it. Why not? Stack it. Do want to play at that game? I would like a return. I know what you're poking at, Stephen. I would like a return to normalcy, but the Democrats have really wrecked and really shifted the conversation. Hopefully we don't need 4 more justices, but maybe why not, just to consolidate our power for all time. All right, thank you, Cliff. Laura Trump is being pitched as a replacement for Rubio, says Cliff Norman. Thank you, Cliff Norman. Interesting. Lot of moving pieces. Musical chairs happening right now. So, okay, my friends, thank you so much for being here. It's a beautiful Tuesday. I hope that your week is unfolding beautifully and you're feeling energized as we launch into the rest of the week. We'll leave it there on the night. Thank you for being here, for those amazing donos, for the conversation, for the fun, for the super chats, for becoming membos. Thank you to our incredible mods who mod the fort down for us. John McGarvey, we got Donut. I know we had Carrie B playing hooky, K Bean in the house. And so, my friends, we're going to pause right there. We're going to head over to locals. We're going to debrief, wrap up with some comments over there. Members, we do members only streams in the morning. So if you're a member, we'll see you back here tomorrow morning. We'd love it if you became a member. Great way to support our work and meet some new friends in smaller, nice streams. We'll be back tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do that, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.